Well, here's another thing that's really hot recently that everybody's talking about, and you're seeing it blow up is good old Delta 8 THC.
Delta 8,
Uh,
yeah.
it's just really exploded over the past month or two. You're seeing the cartridges and gummies, and all the products are rolling out now, and brands are rolling out. Um, so another thing, like getting your opinion on that. Do you think the DEA is just going to come out and say no Delta 8 and try to cut this off at the pass before it gets too big? Or what are your thoughts on, can they do that?
That's a great question. So yeah, so we're seeing. I can't tell you the number of calls we've gotten in the past, several months about Delta 8. It's just kind of bam, come out of almost nowhere.
Nobody could have predicted.
Right. So, just a quick background before I hop on the legal issues, if that's okay. For those of you that don't know, Delta 8 is a one of there's at least 30 different THC analogs, which is the molecule with various small and subtle differences. Delta 8, the delta refers to the position on the cannabinoid or on the molecule where the double bond exists. The one that we all know and love is Delta 9, but that is absolutely controlled in numerous respects in the law. The Delta 8 position, and it acts and interacts with our body much like Delta 9, except it has a 50 to 60% sort of potency or intoxicating effect relative to Delta 9. It also seems to have a greater antiemetic effect, which is sort of to say anti-nausea. So there have been some studies with children in chemotherapy. So I think it has and it doesn't seem to appear to have as much of the anxiety producing effects that some people experience with Delta 9. So I think it's promising, not just because of its legal status, which I'm about to address, but also because its subtle differences, I think, are meaningful differences from Delta 9. With respect to the legal status, we go back to the source rule, which I developed and talked about earlier with respect to CBD, but it applies to all the cannabinoids. If the Delta 9 is derived from marijuana, which is cannabis with more than 0.3% THC, what's clearly a controlled substance, meaning it's illegal. However, if it's derived from hemp, it's lawful, and those two positions are unquestionably true. The real issue is the practical market approach, or the way the industry is approaching it, and that has to do with how the molecule is created in reality. So there are not cannabis strains right now that produce Delta 8 in quantities that make it economically feasible to do. Like, you just can't go out and extract Delta 8 from most cannabis plants, hemp or marijuana, either one. Yeah. So what happens is, in the market, generally what occurs is that people are taking hemp, they're extracting CBD from that, which is unquestionably lawful. It's not a controlled substance. And then they're converting that to Delta 8 by a chemical process.
Yeah.
And so that creates this interesting legal issue. On the one hand, THC, of which Delta 8 is one, is clearly a controlled substance under the law. I do talk a lot with my hands, and I'm not sure if I'm in the middle of the picture or not there. So it's absolutely a controlled substance. However, hemp cannabinoids, other than Delta 9, in concentrations of no more than 0.3%, are removed from the Controlled Substances Act. So where does the Delta 8 that's produced from hemp-derived CBD fall in that? My position, the position of a lot of my colleagues that I've spelled out in a recent blog post, is that hemp-derived CBD is, under the statute, hemp. It's not hemp by any. It's clearly not a plant, but the statute, the way it's worded, defines cannabinoids and derivatives of hemp as hemp. So CBD from hemp is actually hemp, and a hemp derivative is lawful. It's not a controlled substance, and so Delta 8 derived from CBD is a lawful compound. Now, and just to wrap all this little section up with my legal stuff, this is an untested theory. And so the DEA could, as you mentioned, come in and decide to test it. So could state law enforcement officials, and they could say, oh, no, we understand all this and we disagree, or they could just misunderstand it. We've experienced that a lot with CBD and other compounds where law enforcement and regulators don't quite get the issue, and they maybe go on the aggressive stance. So there's a lot of legal stuff that's going to come and flow, but Delta 8, I think, is here to stay, and we'll see how it plays out legally.